I still remember the sound the water made that night. Calm, almost peaceful, before they pulled her body out of it. My daughter, Emily, 24 years old, bright eyes, louder laugh, the kind of soul that made you believe the world still had good people in it. And yet, there she was, cold, silent, and gone. They said it was an accident at first, but I've seen too many accidents to know when something is wrong. Her car was too deep, the seatbelt was cut, and inside her jacket, there was a flash drive wrapped in tape, a single message carved onto it. Don't trust him. That's when everything inside me changed. That's when the father buried the cop. Emily had been digging into something before she died. I didn't know it then, but she'd been tracing the life of a man with 2 names, 2 addresses, and no past. A man who shouldn't exist. He lived in plain sight, ran a security firm, donated to charities, smiled for cameras. Yet, behind those eyes, something else hid. My daughter thought she'd found proof that this man was tied to an old case, one I had failed to solve 2 decades ago, a case that cost me my badge once before. She sent me a message that night. It was the last thing I ever got from her. Dad, I think I found what you missed. I read it too late. By the time I called her back, her phone was already underwater. The department took me off the case. Conflict of interest, they said, as if there was anything left in me that wasn't conflicted. They treated my daughter's murder like a headline, just another cop's tragedy, another story for the evening news. But I couldn't sit still. I went back to her apartment, her files, her laptop. Every folder she left behind led me closer to something that didn't make sense. Names erased from databases, CCTV logs missing hours, people who disappeared right after meeting her. I started to see what she must have seen, and I understood why she died. Justice wasn't coming for her, not through the system. So I made a promise. I would finish what she started. I would find the man she warned me about. And when I did, I wouldn't arrest him. I wouldn't even call it justice. Stay until the end. Because what I did next will haunt you. You think you know what a father is capable of when he loses everything. You don't. And the last thing I did, even I still dream about it. They kept telling me to stand back, but I knew the lake better than any of them. I taught Emily to skim stones here when she was 8, counting the skips until the rock slipped under like it never existed. Now, divers were circling the same patch of water, lights slicing through the dark like scalpels. When they winched the car up, everything slowed. The metal shrieked, the water vomited weeds and glass, and there she was in the driver's seat, hair like black seaweed against the window, eyes closed as if she just blinked at the wrong moment and missed the rest of her life. The seatbelt was severed clean, like a ribbon cut at a ceremony no one should attend. I reached for the door before anyone could stop me. The water slapped my wrists. The cold felt like punishment I deserved, and not nearly enough of it. Her jacket was heavy, pockets sagging. That's where I found the flash drive, wrapped in medical tape, the kind EMTs keep for patching strangers. On the tape, carved with something sharp, 3 words, "Don't trust him." It wasn't just a warning. It was a hand extended from the dead. They labeled the scene, photographed tread marks, asked me if I recognized the tire pattern like grief could identify rubber. I stared past them and saw other things. Emily at 16, furious at a civics teacher who said justice is a theory. Emily at 20, leaving a post-it on my coffee mug. "Stop chasing ghosts, Dad." I used to miss her recitals for stakeouts. She used to bring me grocery store cupcakes with blue icing to say, "We're fine, okay?" We weren't fine. There are debts that interest compounds in the dark. An evidence tech coughed again, and offered me a sterile bag. I put the flash drive in it, watched my hands shake like I'd stolen them from a stranger. "We'll run this downtown," he said. I nodded, lied that I trusted the process, but the cut belt, the taped message, the way her phone pinged one last time from a service road with no cameras, it was already a pattern, not an accident, not a robbery, a performance. Someone had staged the water to look like an ending. I know endings. This felt like an opening scene. They took my badge first, then my gun, then the case. In that order, like stripping paint from a door. "Administrative leave," the captain said, eyes somewhere over my shoulder as if grief were contagious. My desk turned into a cardboard box, a chipped mug, two commendations that suddenly felt like props, a photo of Emily at 10 in a paper frame she made with glitter. I carried it all past people I'd bled with, and no one met my eyes. Policy, protocol, paperwork, the trinity we kneel to when we don't want to touch the truth. By noon, the story had a headline: Cop's daughter found dead. Every channel ran the same 5 seconds of my face from a charity event, looping it like I was stock footage for tragedy. A reporter shoved a mic at me outside the precinct. "Detective, do you think your past cases created enemies?" The question was a hook, baited with my failures. I didn't bite. Inside, the union rep recited sympathy like a legal disclaimer. "We're here for you, Miller, but you know we can't." I knew. Everyone can't when it matters. Back in the evidence room, a tech I'd trained signed out Emily's flash drive without looking up. "Chain of custody," he said. But the form was already filled out. My name was on the line, in my handwriting, dated an hour I spent standing by the lake. I stared at the curve of the M, the impatient slash of the R, perfect imitations of my habits. It felt like someone wearing my skin. I asked who authorized the transfer. He pointed to a code stamped C9T. I'd never seen it used on local cases. Federal, internal, or just a ghost stamp for when things need to disappear with a receipt. The captain called me into his office for the performance of concern. "You're too close, David. Let homicide handle it." He slid a form toward me like a peace offering. I signed nothing. As I turned to leave, I noticed his hands, immaculate nails, a new scar at the base of his thumb that hadn't been there last week. Strange what grief sharpens: memory, suspicion, the shape of a man's cuticles. On the TV in the corner, a pundit debated whether my daughter's death was a wake-up call or a statistic. They spoke in numbers. I kept hearing a single voice, Emily's, whispering from the tape, "Don't trust him." Who was him? The man she was tracking. The man who forged my name. The partner who didn't come to the lake. The captain with the new scar. The reporter who knew too much. The system I once defended like a spine. When you start losing faith, it doesn't crumble. It peels, one lie at a time, until even the good bones look suspicious. I walked out of the precinct under a sky the color of old bruises, and for the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel like a cop leaving work. I felt like a man walking into a hunt, surrounded by predators wearing my friends' faces. I didn't plug the flash drive into anything the department owned. I went home, killed the Wi-Fi, pulled an old air-gapped laptop from a drawer that still smelled like gun oil and coffee, and booted it with a live USB. The drive pretended to be empty. Emily never did simple. Hidden behind a decoy folder labeled tax receipts was an encrypted archive and a hint only she and I would get: blue icing. The password was a joke between us, the cupcakes she used to bribe me into showing up on time. It opened like a throat, photos spilled out, grainy telephoto shots, midnight windows, street corners washed in sodium orange. The same man appeared again and again, always just far enough from focus to feel like an accident. Coat collar up, ball cap, no logos, no silhouette worth a sketch. But in a pane of shop glass, I caught the ghost of a face. High cheekbones, a narrow nose, eyes that didn't look at things so much as measure them. The XIV data hadn't been scrubbed on 3 images. Coordinates plotted to a triangle of places no tourist would visit: a shuttered sawmill near the river, a self-storage labyrinth where the cameras died after midnight, and a diner that never closed because it didn't know how. In one file's metadata, under artist, Emily had typed a single name: Cole. The sawmill came first, a cathedral of rot and quiet. I parked 2 blocks out and walked in with my hands bare, letting the sawdust smell map the place I couldn't see. There were footprints in the powder, deliberate as handwriting, and cigarette ash arranged like breadcrumbs. At the center, on the rusted teeth of a bandsaw, sat a disposable phone with 1 text drafted and unsent. "Too late, detective." The word detective wasn't for any cop. It was for me. I pocketed the phone and felt the room tilt. Outside, a truck backfired, except it didn't echo like a backfire should. A muzzle brake changes sound, the ear learns. I dropped behind a stack of pallets, counted to 7, and heard nothing else but the river. The storage facility was worse. Miles of corrugated metal humming with other people's secrets. I tailed a maintenance cart through a gate before it shut. Unit C43 had a new padlock and a smear of oil on the roll-up lip where hands had hurried. Inside, an office chair with no wheels, a corkboard with every pushpin pulled out, and rectangles of clean wall where photos had recently lived. He'd vacated with the precision of a ghost, but he'd left a smell. Disinfectant, citrus, and bleach. The kind used by people who clean for a living, or who've learned what blood does to paint. On the floor, under fluorescent twitch, I found what I wasn't meant to find. A single Polaroid curled at the edge, my reflection caught in a storefront at night. Camera raised. Emily must have been across the street when she took it. On the back, in caps, "He sees you." My throat went dry. Was she warning me? Or quoting him? The diner was a survivor from another century. Chrome skin, neon script, no music, because the hum of the refrigerators was song enough. I took a counter stool, ordered black coffee, watched the convex mirror above the grill reflect the whole room in a goldfish bowl. A man sat 3 stools down, back to me, a cap pulled low. Light found the pale ladder of a scar on his wrist each time he lifted the cup. He didn't look around. He didn't need to. Predators don't swivel. They wait for the world to turn. The waitress set a napkin by my cup. Ink bled into the paper in tidy block letters. "You like it black. No sugar, no cream." My heart climbed into my mouth. "Who wrote this?" I asked. She shrugged toward the door. A bell jingled. Cool air slid across the floor. I turned, too slow, and saw him reflected in the diner's glass. Not his face, just his outline crossing the parking lot, the kind of walk that wasted nothing. By the time I hit the door, the lot was empty but for a dark sedan idling at the far curb. Its headlights didn't find me. They found the payphone beside me and lit up a scrap of tape wrapped around the receiver. 3 words were carved into it with something sharp, the same handwriting as the flash drive. "Don't trust him." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo came through. The diner's window, my back, my hands clenched on the napkin he'd written. The caption read, "Closer than last time." I looked up into the night and knew 2 things at once. Cole had been inside before I sat down, and he had left something for me to take. Not evidence, but a leash. He wasn't running. He was leading. And every step I took felt like one he'd measured for me years ago. Cole's house wasn't on any map. It was a cabin poured out of shadow and pine, halfway between a dead logging road and nowhere. I cut the breaker at the pole, waited for the house to exhale, then slid a pry bar under the kitchen window. Inside, it smelled like lye and old coffee. The walls were too clean. Sun-bleached rectangles where frames had hung until yesterday. He hadn't fled. He'd curated absence. In the bedroom, a rug bulged slightly. The kind of mistake a man like Cole would never make, unless he wanted someone to notice. Underneath, a steel lockbox stenciled with a code I'd already learned to hate, C19. I picked the hasp with a tension wrench and a prayer. The lid side open on a life I recognized and didn't. A black badge, no department issues, an ankle holster with a weapon our precinct never carried, and a dog-eared file stamped burn notice over a name that wasn't his. Ethan Gray, plus a copy of the authorization that burned him. My authorization, my signature in blue ink, 20 years old and freshly cruel under fluorescent light. Memory hit like a baton. An operation we called Glass House. An undercover buy that skated too close to a city councilman's re-election and a captain's promotion. Evidence went sideways. Someone needed to be the leak. We found it inside Cole's handler reports. I'd signed the suspension to stop a scandal. It was triage, I told myself then. Contain the bleed. Save the body. The body lived. Careers, budgets, headlines. But the heart? We set it on fire and called it protocol. In the bottom of the box, a microcassette recorder lay face down, as if ashamed. I pressed play. Static, then Emily's voice. Steady, careful, brave in a way I never was. "Cole, listen. You were burned to protect someone else. C19 isn't a division. It's a paper trail for disappearing things. I can prove it. I can clear you." His reply was a gravel that cut. That's exactly what he would send you to say. A chair scraped. A gasp. Emily again, closer. "No, I'm here alone. I'm not..." The tape stuttered with a thud like a body finding a floor. Then silence that tasted like iron. On the dresser, she left him a manila envelope, photocopies of my old memos, FYA responses, a timeline with my name threaded through it like wire. In the margin, her handwriting. Dad didn't know. If I can show you, you'll stop running. She hadn't been hunting Cole. She'd been trying to save him. From the lie I helped build, he read the envelope as a lure, her words as bait, her kindness as the oldest trick. I ran a thumb over my signature until the paper went thin. Don't trust him, she'd carved on the USB. She hadn't meant Cole. She meant the system that taught men like me to choose the body over the heart. 20 years ago, I lit the match. Last week, Cole mistook my daughter for the flame. I called him from a burner at dusk and used the name he hadn't heard since the file-stamped burn notice. Ethan. A pause, the kind that weighs a man. Who is this? He asked. Someone who knows C-19 isn't a division, I said. Someone who can prove you were burned to save a captain's promotion. Another pause, shorter, closer to breath than to thought. I gave him a location I could control. Unit C-42, next to the one he'd scrubbed. I'd rented it that morning, threaded the vent with a directional speaker, seated the rafters with a contact mic, and taped a cheap metronome under the table set to the cadence of Emily's heartbeat from an old hospital video. It's amazing what you can teach a room to remember. He came in silent, but rooms talk. He scanned corners, checked sightlines, weighed the distance between us like math. I kept my hands open and my voice the temperature of a confession. We both know the file was a lie, I said. The leak came from above. You were the cutout. I slid him copies of the memos Emily had pulled, my signature dressed in its Sunday best. He didn't sit. Predators don't rest, they hang. And you brought me here because, he said, because the men who burned you are the same ones who erased my daughter. I lied almost completely. He studied me the way he had studied every exit and window. You're a cop, he said finally. I was, I answered. Tonight, I'm just her father. Phase 1 was trust by subtraction. I gave him almost nothing and let silence fill the shape of a partnership. People project their wants onto quiet walls. Phase 2 was memory. I bumped the volume of the metronome under the table just enough that he would feel rhythm before he heard it. The metronome taught his nerves to expect a pulse. I timed the first whisper for when his breathing matched it. From the vent above his left shoulder, softer than the air itself, Emily's voice threaded the room. You don't have to run. He flinched, not physically. The eyes flinched first. What is that? He said. But he knew. Guilt recognizes the ghost before reason does. I told him I had a source inside the precinct feeding me scraps about C-19. We can smoke them out together, I said. But I need your roots, your caches, your dead drops from back then. If they know your pattern, they'll get to me before I get to them. He laughed without joy. You want my past? He said. No, I said, and let the second whisper land beside his right ear. Cole, please, listen. He spun, saw nothing, shoved a knuckle into his teeth until the skin whitened. Don't do that, he muttered to air, and the sentence wasn't for me. I sent the text to his burner from another number I'd prepped. Glass house, acanthus, confirmed. The old ops code words. The same sequence buried in the box under his rug. His phone lit up on the table like an omen. How? He started. They never stopped using you, I said. You think you got free? They just changed your leash. He walked a slow circle, eyes tracking ideas like prey, breath fogging in that cold tin room. I let a third clip play, Emily again, lifted from the cassette, careful and warm in a way that broke me. Cole, if you can hear me, I can clear you. He couldn't stand still anymore. He pressed his palms to his eyes like he could smother what he was hearing. She set me up, he said, but less certain than the night he killed her. I took a step closer to the lie I needed him to need. No, I said. They set both of you up. He asked for proof of the they, and I fed him truth like poison. Names half redacted, dates that matched the gaps in his memory, the captain's scar I'd cataloged, The evidence text forged chain of custody. He swallowed each piece, then glanced over his shoulder at nothing, waiting for the next whisper. I knew then the room had shifted sides. It belonged to me. Paranoia doesn't enter through the eyes. It arrives through timing. I changed the metronome's pace by a hair. His heart tried to catch up and couldn't. Sweat gathered at his hairline, though the air was cold. If we do this, he said finally, we do it my way. Your way, I repeated, and let the last line from Emily drift like a blessing or a blade. You don't have to be the villain. He didn't answer me. He answered her. I never wanted to be. He said to the vent, to the memory, to the part of him that still believed in exits. And that was when I knew I could lead him anywhere. Not because I'd earned his trust, but because I'd broken his map. I told him it was a safe house, but the truth was simpler. It was the only place that still knew my daughter's name without me saying it. The porch groaned the way it always had. The doorframe still wore pencil scars where I'd measured her height on birthdays. Each line a year she'd stolen from sleep to see the sunrise. Cole followed me in with that economy of motion he wore like armor. Why here? He asked. Because this is where the lie began, I said, and because endings should have witnesses. In the living room, I'd cleared the furniture to the walls. A camera faced the couch, its tiny red eye steady as a pulse. Beside it, a battered laptop waited on a crate. I clicked a key, and the screen filled with a mirror of us, a ghost of a father, a man who had learned to live between names. You wanted proof, I said. You wanted the they. You'll have it. I brought up a folder labeled Glass House, authorizations, signatures, off-the-books payouts, timestamps that stitched C19 through the precinct like a black thread. My blue ink from 20 years ago shone like a bruise. I burned you, I said to the lens, to spare a promotion and a headline. I told myself the system mattered more than one man. I let the camera swallow every syllable. Then the system killed my daughter with my ash still on its hands. Cole took a step toward the screen as if heat were coming off it. What is this? He asked. The only thing that gets heard anymore? I said. A confession, a live one. He glanced at the window. Sirens are songs you learn to hear before they start. You called them, he said. No, I said. I invited everyone. Internal, media, the union, the send queue already counting down in the corner of the screen. When this file leaves this room, I said, it won't need my breath to keep running. He noticed the changes then, the absence that hummed under the floorboards, the wires he couldn't place, the smell that doesn't belong to homes. You rigged it, he said. I didn't nod. I didn't need to. I don't intend to survive this, I told him, and the truth felt like water after fire. You will. You're going to stand in a courtroom and tell them exactly what you told her. You're going to carry this weight, not as a ghost, but as a witness. He reached for me with a human hand, finally. Don't be the villain. Emily's voice whispered from the walls. The last clip, the last mercy. He flinched, then steadied. I killed her, he said, raw. By mistake. By fear. No, I said, and looked straight into the camera. I killed the man who could have saved her 20 years ago. I pressed record for the final time and spoke to the country and the captain and the boy I once was. I named names. I gave dates. I gave mine. On the porch, the first wash of blue and red painted the wood in false dawn. I pushed Cole toward the back door. I'd left unlatched. Go, I said. Live long enough to be judged. He hesitated, then vanished into the night the way ghosts finally do. I sat on the couch where Emily used to fall asleep with homework on her chest and faced the lens that kept no secrets. Justice doesn't arrive, I said. It's carried. When the timer clicked somewhere deep in the house, it sounded like a lock finally turning. And for once, I didn't reach for the badge I no longer had. I reached for her photograph and kept my eyes open as the screen lit with a storm of outgoing files and sirens sharpened into shape.